Morning, evening, hello.
Yes, evening.
Yes, the world
Been
has
a
not
fun few
ended.
days.
Yep, purple haired people are crying.
Yeah, I would say the world got a hell of a lot better. It was a hell of a night.
Yeah, and I think one of the things. What's it? There's various definitions of insanity, but a good one seems to be when you don't check your assumptions, your worldview against the world. If you base
Mm.
your worldview on an abstraction and the abstraction overrules the world, then
Well, that'd be ideology, wouldn't it?
yeah, ideology, dogma, whatever. You end up with the ideology overruling the world, and therefore the world wins because reality doesn't care what you think it should do.
Isn't that Peterson's quote about making sure your map of the world is close to reality so you don't run headlong into brick walls?
Pretty much same thing. Yeah, I was taking it or paraphrasing some of the things that Waterfoltist had been talking about. But
I find myself resistant to watching his things, even though I like him.
interesting. But the uh, I feel sorry for the people who are suffering emotionally because of Trump's win.
Yeah, I don't think it's their fault. Like, they were tricked into the lies. I don't think that they willfully sought out confirmation bias.
It's hard to avoid these days. It's hard to avoid full stop.
Yeah, it's pretty difficult. Like, even I notice in myself, I have my sphere of influential people I like listening to. And as I mentioned on the previous attempt at this recording, I have a podcast I listen to that's sort of technology based news around Apple products. And they are all very far left. They don't talk about politics almost ever. But when they do, I find myself very. I find it hard to resist the temptation to just unsubscribe and not listen anymore.
But
Like you're saying, it's hard to avoid that bias.
that tendency to stop listening to someone because you disagree with them seems to be one of the things that uh, differs between the current right and left political spectrum ends because what was it the right can generally understand what the left is thinking if they look into it. The left can't generally, and
Yeah,
you see a few cases of people who were on the left and then they actually looked into what the right thought and why they thought it, and then thought, hang on a minute, that kind of
what
makes
you got?
sense.
What Rubin, Rogan, RFK, Tulsi Gabbard, Elon Musk.
Yeah,
The list is getting pretty long.
yeah. Well, those are the prominent ones. I'm talking about just everyday people.
As I mean, my grandmother.
Mm.
Yeah, she was texting me links to X about funny memes happening on election night. I was like,
Oh
this is
yeah,
a big change for her. It was quite great it was great to see.
yeah. And I've got an interesting example of your worldview or your perspective depending on the sources of media you consume. In my personal life from my father, because he's focused in a fair bit on the Ukraine conflict, and I think he kind of sees it as Cold War Take Two in severity.
I would say that's reasonable.
Yeah, and it was interesting to discuss it with him because, oh, like his attention span, his the time that he can continue a debate and argument is shorter than me, so it usually finishes up with him grumping a little bit, not at me, but just like he's had enough of the discussion, so then I leave it for a while. But while the discussion's going, he's open to discussing points, and so I openly tried to drill down to okay, what are the differences that are leading to our different perspectives? What are you seeing that I'm not, and what am I seeing that you're not? And he sees it as an existential threat to the West that Russia, if the Russian leadership aren't knocked down a peg or three, then they will steamroll the rest of the world unless we stop them now. And that if the Democrats were the only ones who would do that, not Trump, because he's already professed to being friendly towards Putin. And I have some issues with the logic in that, but the key point I'm making here is that the opinions that you absorb from the media that you watch can drastically change your perspective on what matters and what's important. Like, my attitude was far more, or was focused more on build yourself up, so it doesn't matter what the other side does, you're big enough that they just sort of break on your defences. Don't fight them down and then let yourself rot in the process, because then everyone fails anyway.
It is remarkable the echo chamber nature of everyone today, really. I think the biggest disservice to all of this is the TV media choosing sides. I think it was probably always that way, but we didn't see it. But now it is very much, if you get your news from a television, you are going to be in a worldview that is completely opposed to people who get their news from the internet. Even left-wing people who get their news from the internet still are in a slightly different silo. Slightly.
Yeah, there was this one I heard about of, what was it? Parents bring their kids out in front of the camera, so this is all performative in a sense, and said, kids, we have to tell you, Trump won! What? No! And the kids start crying and so on, and your school will have more information, but it's like, are we going to be okay? It's like, no, this is terrible, and it's like, that's not good for the kids.
No, it's horrible.
Yeah.
About eroding faith in democracy.
Yeah, and this blatant misrepresentation of the other side, I think more on the left, but on both sides, really. Like, you can't accurately represent the opinions of another group. Well, group is even more difficult, but individual, unless you have an open dialogue where you have a full perspective on that person and a copy of their perspective and noted disagreements on it. So anything that you perceive about an opponent or someone on the other side of a discussion that it's going to be a caricature.
I think there is something to the point that this time was different, though. Both sides made the claim that the fundamental future of the nation would be changed by the election, this year's election.
I think that's a common claim.
I think they were right. I think they were right, though.
Yeah, I think this one more than previous ones. Like, they say that this is the most important election every time, but
I think today, I think it was true this time around.
Yeah,
because,
normally
you have the illegal immigration and electoral problem. That was absolutely huge. You have the pushing a candidate without any democratic selection. And then the voter suppression stories. Like, both sides are going to say that this was the turning point. And it was. And I think, I'm not sure a Democrat will get elected for 20 years. I'm actually not sure about that. Just based on the trends. And I think they knew that, and that's why they were trying so hard to prevent anything from happening. And if it had gone the other way, I think we might have had the opposite situation, where a Republican might not have gone in for 20 years. Obviously, personally, I'm glad it went this way, but for people who believe that the conservative side of the political spectrum are literal Nazis, which is... I mean, obviously they can't believe that. They're not that stupid. They're being hyperbolic. Whatever.
But at the same time, they use those words.
They believe that they are moving in that direction. That might be a better way of saying it, to give them, whatever credit they may be due. It does explain a lot of the way that they've been freaking out. And
Mm.
frankly, the way that the right's been freaking out, because I think I think the future of the West itself was on the ballot.
Mm.
And I'm not entirely sure that some people knew it explicitly, but I think a lot of people didn't know it explicitly. But I think the
Mm.
feeling was there.
Yeah. As you'll know, I have a tendency to second guess myself a lot, and so I've tried to find fundamental differences between the two paths offered by either end of the political spectrum, and the most sort of distilled down point I've been able to find so far is that the social patterns and the governance pattern that the left end of the political spectrum has been pushing is a pattern that, through historical example, has led to the decay and collapse of civilizations repeatedly.
That's true.
Whereas the one that the right end of the political spectrum, as now formulated, because the formulations of the two sides have twisted out of recognition from the previous formulations to a large degree.
Yeah, it's sort of taken 10 years for the new MAGA movement to become what it really was.
Mm.
We've sort of been, we, it has sort of been growing over the last 10 years since Trump first ran, and it's not the same as what it was.
Mm.
But I think it's matured into its own new culture.
Yeah. Yeah, and the pattern that seems to have succeeded the most is free market libertarian meritocracy. And
Shocking.
there's overlaps between that, but it's like you look at the various examples through history, like ancient China were for a long period the most technologically advanced, but they had a massively bureaucratic state. And go back a few hundred years, and you compare that with Britain and Europe, even between different areas in Europe, the more rural and so connected to base reality people were as an aristocracy, the better their country did. France versus Britain was a good example of that, where the French aristocracy clustered around Paris and in the cities and flounced around in their fancy wigs, and the British had their fancy wigs, but they also went fox hunting. And it's like, as much as you might decry fox hunting as a barbaric sport, it's like running through the woods on a horse, chasing an animal, is closer to base reality of blood and gore life than fancy wigs and cakes.
Mm. It's something that Rogan often mentions, is that doing exercise or doing martial arts is a pathway to being right wing.
Mm.
And he talks about it in terms of like the only way to succeed is hard work and dedication and skill. But I think the more important thing is that the terms of failure cannot be redefined by the person playing the game. Like when you're closer to reality, reality defines failure. You don't, it doesn't matter what you say, doesn't matter how you feel, doesn't matter your argument. If you failed, you failed.
Yeah.
And there's no way to get out of the consequences.
Yeah, were you the guy on the floor at the end of the boxing match? It's pretty cut and dried.
Yeah, or I didn't do a great job sowing my seeds and now I'm hungry.
Yeah.
And when you're in the ivory tower, you can redefine what failure means.
Yeah.
Hence all of the times in the last few years during the election cycles where certain words were redefined in order to change the meaning of laws.
Mm.
Words as a weapon rather than laws.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot to be said for sort of the expanded version, the elaborated on version of the quote of democracy is the worst system of government apart from all the others. It's like democracy is absolutely terrible at getting anything done efficiently.
Well, that's
Right?
good.
Yeah, because it means that death camps don't happen efficiently. It's like,
Yeah, well, we got pretty fucking close to that. It's something that I will never forget, and I'll try my best to remind everyone of. Is we all are so keen to forget the COVID times,
Well,
but we were months from rounding people up.
look at
People don't understand how close we were.
Second World War prison camps for Japanese immigrants in the US. Like, that's happened
Yep.
under
Yep,
a
Kenji.
democratic system. And Germany was a democratic system prior to World War II. Populist leader coming in and sweeping through with an extra agenda.
Yeah,
It's
and that's
not
why
perfect.
they label populism as a problem.
But at the same time, an absolute monarch who goes despotic without some checks and balances, it's justified ethnic cleansing.
Yep.
And yeah, there are a lot of every system.
I was just going to say, I think this is the greatest signal that the best system of governments that has been created thus far is the United States. The Constitution and the checks and balances and the court system. They have so many countervailing forces holding each other back.
I agree. I'm not sure whether that's the best version of democracy, because on the one hand, they needed a lot of all the amendments to make up for the gaps they found. On the other hand, they made up for the gaps by making amendments, right? Having capacity to adapt built into the system with limits, but when everyone's like, this kind of needs to change, then they can just change it.
Well, yeah, I don't feel that's a refutation at all.
Yeah, you're right. I'm just comparing it to the systems which comparing it to later established democracies that tried to incorporate those lessons at the start, but at the same time they became less clear in many ways. Like New Zealand, having it built up by case law in more ways, it's there's no
like an English-based system.
Yeah. There's no constitution you can read through and say that. Okay, those are the rules, and then there's more elaboration on them.
Yeah, it's precedent.
Yeah, whereas in New Zealand and the English common law system, you don't have a constitution to refer back to. It's not as codified.
Yeah. I wish we did.
Yeah.
We have some the wall of laws is getting a little high.
Yeah.
A bit of a great fire and a cull in the government would be great.
Mm.
We won't get that this time around, although I think the cultural influence of this... Like, people have often asked me why I care so much about the US, about their elections, and particularly this one. But I don't feel that it was just an election of this guy versus that lady, or this ideology versus that ideology. I feel it felt like the culmination of the culture war. The rift that was torn in the middle of the West, the two halves of our soul. Which one was going to hold supreme? And I think the fact that it was the House, the Senate, the popular vote, and 312 electoral sweep sent a pretty clear message of this is the direction the West is going to go now.
Yeah, there was an interesting thing on total vote numbers that I saw that, if I remember this correctly, Trump got less votes this time than he did against Biden. But Biden got millions of votes more than the average for Democrats. Like, there was a thing I saw someone graphed.
There's a lot of posts like that coming out,
Yeah, Democrats seem to get the same number of votes every election for their candidate.
Except for 2020, where they got 20 million extra.
Yeah, whereas it's the Republicans that go up and down. And yeah, so the independents either don't vote or vote for the Republican candidate, in a sense.
Generally, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Democratic is usually based on voter turnout more than winning anyone's opinion. And I think that's why they did the whole mail-in thing last time round, which I think, if we're going to be, generous about it, is where they got those votes from.
Yeah.
But one of my favourite tweets that I did see after this is like, fuck, maybe we did cheat last time. Just from seeing how few votes they got.
Well, I kind of think that both sides are cheating. and the cheating on both sides kind of cancels each other out. But that's also even worse because then both sides don't trust the result of the other side, and it's like, yeah.
Okay. I'm not sure the argument for the Republicans cheating. Like, I haven't looked into it personally, but why do you say that?
Not broad scale, and it's not. It's a argument from authority, basically. Someone quote from someone closer to the action than me. But on the what was it the middle manager and below level, the fact that the voting system is so open to rigging, and someone on the low end of the hierarchy saying, "I know the other side are cheating. My morals are a bit flexible, so I'll do it too to balance things out." I could easily see that happening.
As could I. My objection is that I've never heard of any stories about that in evidence. Yeah. And if there was but one, that would be over every mainstream source, everywhere, forever.
Yeah, you're right.
Whereas, we have a whole lot of questions and evidence on the other hand that is sort of purposefully never talked about, which is, telling.
Yeah. Well, hopefully...
I don't think it matters now, though.
Yeah, because there was a speech I saw someone going through it and discussing the points as Trump was making them, where he was, with regards to draining the swamp, he sounded like he was on a bit of a warpath, laying out, I will do this, 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 this. Here are the 8 or 10 points that I will be doing. And things like re-establish the executive order giving the president the ability to fire useless bureaucrats. Just like that.
Yeah, in departments.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure RFK is going to be going hard at the FDA and tearing it to shreds.
Yeah. And the fact that Elon seems to have Trump's ear in many ways, and there was a clip I saw of him advocating paper ballots. It's like, he's the tech guy, and he's saying, just use paper. It works.
Yeah, that's what everywhere uses for a reason.
Yeah.
But yeah, did you see his Rogan interview just before the election?
Trump's one?
Elon.
No. I've been disengaging to a large extent and sort of coming in to see the results because...
I was going to ask you about that because I asked you on election night how you were feeling and you had a very, very black-pilled, cynical comment and I was like, oh god, this isn't great. What's going on here?
I've managed to improve the emotional distance to the chaos. Like, I've focused more on just doing my stuff, fiddling with electronics and making a 3D printable thing for work that...
So I take it you didn't stay up on election night watching the streams?
Nah, I only checked into it because you were poking me too, and it's like, oh, he's already basically won. Okay.
There was plenty of yelling in my house when it was called. It was great. We had a good night.
Yep.
Great fun.
Yeah, there was a comment I heard about rich people on the left saying, this country's doomed, let's move to New Zealand. And I was like, we're good. No need. No.
Yeah, that's the importing problem.
Yeah.
Of, they're all leaving California, going to Texas and making it worse.
Yeah.
No, they can all stay there, thank you very much. I'd rather go over there. You know what, they can bring all the rich people and the liberal elites can come here, and then they can give us working class people citizenship status in the United States. Sound like a trade?
Yeah.
Sounds good. No, I find it very interesting, the difference of perspective on both sides before and after this. Mentioned it on the previous attempt to record this episode, that I was listening to those guys I mentioned before after the fact, crying about the results. And the accusations that they were making towards the right-hand side of the political spectrum were the same ones that the right hand makes against the left. Like, it's the Spider-Man meme. Which I thought was fascinating.
Yeah.
Because obviously only one side can be true.
A lot of the use of those sort of words isn't in the logical argument sense. It's a here is this word that evokes bad feelings, and I will throw it at you, like slinging mud in an almost literal sense. And they're not actually thinking this is the technically correct term for this thing that I accurately believe that they embody.
Well,
It's
it wasn't meaning the the racist, fascist, whatever.
mm,
They did that ahead of the election to, encourage people to go out and vote for her. But afterwards, they were a lot calmer,
mm,
which I thought was funny, Mr. Racist, fascist. And then immediately afterwards, they're like, oh, I feel sad, I feel bad, but it'll be okay. We're going to remember it'll be okay. Which I'm pretty sure Kamala said in her concession speech. If it was going to be okay, why did you scream for a year and a half about how he's Hitler? That's right. Hitler's elected, now it's fine, apparently.
they were
Um,
more concerned with winning than with the consequences of losing.
yeah, well, the consequences of their own actions and their own words didn't mean anything to them.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, they were talking about the erosion of the institutions of the nation, and they were making these appeals to patriotism and what it means to be a true patriot and to be a true American. And it's very strange to hear well, not liberals, these are leftists, speaking in that same way that all of the Republicans have for the last 2 years, pointing at the other side, saying, you're eroding our institutions. To be specific, they were referencing Trump-installed judges and DAs giving preferential treatment to Republicans. And it's like, that's wild because, flip side, the George Soros-funded DAs has been a meme forever.
Mm.
And they believe the same thing. They believe that judges are appointed by Republicans for Republican benefit. And they made the explicit statement of no judges should ever be appointed politically. And it's like, okay, we can agree. But that means you believe that the left-leaning judges that are appointed are not politically biased, which they are. It's very much the Spider-Man pointing at each other.
I saw someone
Saying
pointing
the
out
same
it's
thing.
yeah, what was it? Admission by projection or confession by projection.
Yeah, that's the rules for radicals. Always accuse your opponent of that which you are doing.
So they're literally, to greater or lesser degrees, consciously deciding to admit their failings by projecting them onto the opponents. And if you add that to your thought process, okay, what are they accusing the other side of?
At least the thought leaders are.
Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
then people are copying that.
Yeah, and I would say these people that I was listening to would be on the thought leader side of it, not the other side. Like, they're too stupid to go the other way.
Hmm.
Which is just wild that the ends justify the means, I suppose, for those kind of people.
Yeah, once you start getting ends justifying means arguments, things start getting dicey. It's like, yeah, where's the limit? Is there a limit? Is a very important question. Like, when is too far?
Well, if your opponent is Hitler,
Yeah,
what's too far to stop?
but they don't believe that, or they would be running. Well, some of them are.
Well, yeah. Well, not really.
Mm.
Like, all the memes are going around, everyone's posting all the lists of the people who said they'd leave the country, being like, all right, time's come. Get. And
Yeah.
none of them have. I think one person did. And then anyone who does, I think it was Tom Cruise? No. No, it was the guy who played Forrest Gump. I forget his name.
Tom
Tom
Hanks.
Hanks.
Mm.
People immediately went, well, guess who's on Diddy's list then? Or Epstein's. Either one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which apparently is going to become public, by the way.
Yeah, he's going to do a lot of that.
Elon Musk.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I think we're going to see some change like we haven't seen in a long time.
Yeah, it's
Gonna
like
be wild.
if someone keeps accusing you of having a whole ton of skeletons in the closet, and they're like, okay, let's just open the massive closet wide and see whose skeletons are in there.
No, don't stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see who runs first.
Yeah, it's...
No, I think it's great. Like, it took me a long time to accept it, It was funny because before we even started watching the stream, I asked Milani, and she said, "Oh, he's going to win. Trump's got it." And I was like, "All right, we'll see." And we felt that last time. And then we were watching it, and his number was always ahead the whole time, and she was totally confident. And I think all of us that stayed up last time around were like, I'm not celebrating till I see that check mark.
Yeah.
And even when it was called by Decision Desk, we were like flicking over to the New York Times going, they still haven't.
Yeah.
They were holding out. They didn't want to give him Alaska. They were trying to keep it under the threshold to maintain the pretense of it's still possible. Which I'm pretty sure they're still doing, because now instead of holding it just under 270, they're holding it just under 300, because they don't want him to seem like he's got 312.
Yeah.
They'll go, 295. Yeah. And there's this little bit that hasn't been called yet, which it has. Still playing games, even though he won.
Yeah. Well, there was a point I saw someone making that, what was it? This guy, I think it was a Timcast guest, he'd ranked outcomes in terms of what would be
It
best
was
for
Shapiro.
the country. Yeah. What was it? Trump win by a lot. Trump win by a little. Kamala win by a lot. Kamala win by a little. But the point being that if it's arguable, then that
it'd be bad.
gives whatever side lost the plausible deniability to argue they only won because they cheated.
Yeah.
And then things get fiery.
And I think the Kamala win by a little was the lowest because the right wouldn't be able to help themselves but complain about cheating. And and then the left would have the authority to go after them again. Like January 6th again, but on steroids.
Oh, yeah. That would
have been bad.
Yeah.
Just wait for the protest, by the way. I guarantee you there'll be protests on January 6th by lefties.
Yeah.
I haven't looked at her yet, but I've seen some screenshots of her melting down. Yeah. I'm going to go and watch that.
But this time I think that it won't be... Like the January 6th ones, it was like, we prosecute you for quietly wandering in and straightening the pamphlets, then standing peacefully in the thing. This time it'll be, here is the video of you attacking people and burning things and so on. And
well, as an objection to that, they already did it. It was July 17th or something.
Yeah.
A few years earlier that they set fire to the White House grounds and burnt down a church.
Yeah.
And it was like, no prosecutions.
Well,
none of that. President forced into a bunker. Peaceful.
Yeah. This time I think he wouldn't take it lying down.
I don't think so. I think there's going to be a mobilization like nothing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And I think that's why all these people, I think that's why they are playing so nice. Because there's two options.
Yeah.
They're playing nice because they're terrified of what's going to happen to them if they don't, or even still what's going to happen to them, period, because we've seen what they've done already. Or they have something else up their sleeve, and they don't think he'll make it to the White House in the first place.
Well, there were those, someone in the legislature or talking about a plan to not certify Trump as duly elected.
They've been talking about that for like a year and a half.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't know
but
what's going to happen.
You want to know my real conspiracy theory?
What?
I think Biden wants Trump in. I think he's wanted him to win the whole time.
Yeah.
He came out and congratulated him this morning or yesterday morning. He walked out standing straight up. He walked quickly. He spoke quickly with no stammers and no stutters. He thanked people and left. Perfectly clear the whole time.
Lucky in a lucid moment, or?
I don't think so. There's been so many memes of what he's done. Yeah. I think the favourite video I've seen post-election was a clip of him walking off and smiling at the camera. And then, What I've Done by Linkin Park plays, and it cuts to directed by Michael Bay. As the final moment from Transformers where it's like, hey, we've succeeded. Because he forced her into this position and made sure she couldn't win. And now she's done.
Yeah.
She can't run again. She has no office to go back to. She's not going back to being a senator or a DA. She's out. Forever. And he's the president.
Yeah.
Like, we all kind of, go, oh, yeah, he's not, yeah, okay, he's mentally whatever. But if he decided that he wanted to be in the office every day and commanding, he could.
Even if he only gets to command a few things, like you stab me in the back, I'm going to command the things to get you back.
I think he has full. I mean, he's still the president, so he does
Mm.
still have full authority if he wanted to use it.
Mm.
And I think we're not going to be seeing anything from her from now till inauguration. I think we're going to be seeing plenty of him.
Mm.
And I think he's going to be peaceable and transfer power.
Yeah.
I think. I think he's just shut out the radical side of the party.
Mm. Which
Now,
is
he won't be run again. I mean, he might. He might run again in 4 years. Fucking who knows?
oh, from a wheelchair.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
But
But
I don't
Trump
know. I
seems
think
to...
he's been more on Trump's team than Kamala's for sure.
Yeah, it does seem that way. And like bullets going through your ear have a habit of waking you up and making you take things seriously. And I get the feeling that he's what was it? There's the guys who are bluster, and last time he was good at bluster. This time I think he's got the stick out and he's just like, give me an excuse. Someone give me an excuse.
Yeah.
My ear's hurting.
It was great to watch election night here in New Zealand because I think they called it at 3 a.m. there, and it was like 9 o'clock here. So I got to stay up all night and watch the world react to it's confirmed he's elected. And I think it was within about half an hour, the leader of Hamas came out and made public statements like, we're stopping. It's over. Our actions in international waters were just defensive purposes only. We're retreating our military, just like, please don't murder us. And it wasn't just him, it was like 3 other terrorist organizations immediately made public statements. The director of the military in Iran made public statements. Xi Jinping and Putin both called Trump directly to be like, hey, peace, please.
Yeah.
Everything immediately, the world went, oh shit, we're going to behave.
Yeah, it's like one of the arguments against Trump in international things is that he's unpredictable. It's that he would actually hit the button if it got pushed to that point, right? And
What's the point in having the greatest stick in the world if you never swing it?
Yeah, and like everyone knows that. Everyone's scared of him, which, okay. If things are peaceful, you want someone who would keep them peaceful. If things are ramping up and if the bullies are running around, you want someone who would hit them. And then they go, yeah, okay, I know you'll hit me, so I'll just sit here quietly.
Yeah, well, this is a weird analogy, but for anyone who likes video games, you'll know this. There's a scene in the campaign of Black Ops 2 where there's this old veteran guy stuck in a hospital who's been, like, kidnapped. And then the new young guys who are, like, the modern military set in the future burst in to, sweep the building. They're looking all badass. They burst into his room to secure him, to protect him. And he just looks over and he says, your safety's on, you dipshit. It doesn't matter the fanciest gun and the biggest, coolest armor that you have if you can't fire your weapon. You're not scary.
Yeah.
But Trump, he's got the United States military at his back. And he, not only is he good at threatening at using it, he did actually use it. I forget the situation, but it was Syria. There was something going on at Syria. Syria shot at someone. And I think like an hour later, he sent like 59 missiles in and just bombed the shit out of them. And they immediately were like, okay, we're not doing that again.
Yeah. It's like you've got saber rattling and you've got the biblically accurate translation of meek in terms of meek shall inherit the earth, which, as we've mentioned a bunch of times, has a sword, knows how to use it, but keeps it sheathed. It's like, I will not draw my sword unless I plan to use it. It's like the warrior philosophy that you see either in reality or fiction every now and again of my sword will not go back.
Does Japan have that? It's something about Japan culture for the samurai.
Well, like my sword will not go back in its sheath until it has drawn blood.
Yeah,
and
that's the only time I can put it away.
Yeah, I remember some. It was on Babylon 5, sci-fi show, but someone had. What was it? Contact someone. He drew his sword. He didn't want to hurt anyone, but he was basically saying to this person, "Don't go. We need you as a leader. Unless you stay, I will use my sword to stab myself." And then the guy eventually gets convinced not to go and to stay and lead his people. And then everyone wanders off, and this guy cuts himself with a sword and then puts it away. It's like it's a very powerful statement, but Trump, he won't pull the sword out unless he's planning to use it, like you're talking about. Like, someone does something, the missiles go
Yeah.
in. But at the same
He'll
time,
reference that he has the sword.
yeah.
Hey, look at this button. You know, one of the funniest things I ever heard is that he used to invite, when he had the world leaders over in the White House, he would have a big red button on the White House desk. And in the middle of the conversation, he'd just push it. And they'd all shit themselves and be like, what the hell? What was that? And then some lady would come in with a Diet Coke. And it was just the point of like, big red button sitting here. You didn't say anything particularly mean. I was listening intently. Press. Just remember, I have the button.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, he gets a Coke
Yeah.
or whatever.
But at the same time, he would sit down to negotiate rather than
Yes,
just tell
yeah.
you what to do. He's got both
Yeah,
sides of that.
Yeah. That's the problem with the Democratic side, particularly with the Ukraine war, is that they have this attitude of the only victory is Russia's complete defeat. It's like, no, that's not the case. Whereas Trump's point was like, I want the killing to stop.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit what you're doing over in your part of the world. If it infringes upon American interest, we have a problem. But as long as it doesn't, let's not be funding this.
Mm.
And yeah, Putin called him within the day to start peace talks.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, that's the optimal outcome. Like, what was it? Oh. In the discussions I had with my dad about the Ukraine conflict, that was one that he did not think would happen. That if Trump gets in, he'll just let Putin keep going, or just have his territory. You can just keep that for free. And
I think he will get parts of the Ukraine.
yeah,
For
it
sure.
wouldn't surprise me.
Well, that was why he went in.
Mm.
Like, there was a piece that he needed.
Mm.
It makes sense why he needs it. I think it's not a particularly big problem to the West that he has it, particularly if it means we're on more peaceful terms. We can still obliterate him if we need to, but we don't need to.
Yeah, it's like, stop things there, stop the death, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then build
He
yourself
wants
up.
access to the Black Sea so he can trade in oil and ship it out of there.
Mm.
Fair enough. That's not such of a problem if we, like, produce our own oil. It doesn't really matter if there's other sources of energy on the planet.
Mm.
It only really matters if we destroy our own systems so that Putin has the monopoly on oil. You can take the chip away in different ways. It doesn't have to be with the millions upon millions of deaths of Ukrainian citizens
Yeah.
and conscripting retarded people to fight on the front lines. It's getting pretty dark over there.
Mm. Yeah, there's a lot that's going to change out of that war too, like the development of drone warfare.
You know what's funny is that I didn't think it was a particularly big issue, the Ukraine war.
Mm.
But the Israel one was the one that struck me as being way more of a threat than the conflict in Ukraine.
Yeah, Ukraine's been elevated by outside powers. Israel has nukes.
Israel has a pretty intense military too.
Yeah.
Like, they should not be underestimated. And from what I have heard, I think I got this from Ben Shapiro and a couple other people who were close to Trump, mentioned that his mandate was effectively, get your war over before I get in office. I don't care what you do. I don't want to be dealing with this when I'm inaugurated.
Yeah.
And that could be pretty dark. I think, on my personal side of it, I don't really care. I think Israel has the right to go and decimate whoever they please. I'm not super sympathetic in those situations.
Yeah, I kind of stay out of it because long term, like 50, 100-year more timescale from now, it's not the first time there has been an Israel in that area. Like the Crusades established one too. Everyone around them hates them. And once the support from across the seas goes away, eventually, then...
I would disagree with that.
Mm?
Abraham Accords kind of says otherwise.
I haven't looked into them in detail. I've been meaning
Well,
to.
effectively, who hates them is Iraq and Iran.
Mm.
The rest of the Arab nations don't really give a shit. They're more interested in making money.
And if Iraq and Iran are saying, we'll give you money to attack them, they're like, sure.
Yeah, well, most of them are just staying out of the conflict.
Mm.
The terrorist groups in the middle are the ones causing problems.
Mm.
And they're funded by Iran. And Iran was funded by Biden.
Mm.
So that's kind of a problem. But take away all their money, take away their ability to sponsor terrorism, and a bit of lethal force from the American-Israeli side, that goes away. And peace will come back in the region like it did, 4.5 years ago? 5 years ago.
Mm.
I think it's a pretty easily solvable problem.
Yeah. Hopefully, yeah. Well, we'll know in a few months.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, and then beyond that, like whatever you think of Trump as an individual, it's seeming increasingly clear that he is opening the path for new young blood to come into politics.
Yeah,
bringing in
needed.
Yeah, bringing in the next generation, like Vance and so on. He's catalyzed.
I can't believe he got Rogan to pick sides. That is like the greatest signal ever of, okay, this was necessary.
Yeah, he got the hippie to vote for him.
Yeah, he's fucking real lefty.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see Elon start firing people, though. That's going to be great.
He got the Amish to vote for him. Yeah.
Yeah.
All what they were voting for was stop raiding our farms for having milk that we haven't pasteurized on our own farms, with everyone involved in it and consenting with it in all ways, and
or collecting rainwater.
Yeah, or raiding houses to kill squirrels. Not that was an Amish problem, but like, leave us alone.
Yeah, that was pretty wild.
Yeah.
No, I think this is a great day for the West, because the rest of the West is going to follow their example. I think the next domino to fall is going to be Canada, and Pierre Poilievre is going to win, and then I think the next one will be Britain.
Yeah.
Britain's getting so bad, and I think they're going to have a massive sweep in their system. Same kind of system. All I need is the right leader. I haven't paid too much attention, but I have heard Sargon talk about it, and from his point of view, yeah, it's coming. They're going to have a sweep like Trump did, and that's going to be great. We got National last year, but they don't really have we don't have the movement behind them here yet. The left is particularly, the new left is particularly activated in our country, but the new right, not really.
There does seem to be a lot of...
Everything's too good here.
The issue I have with the right, National in New Zealand is... I'm not sure how much Labour does this too, but let's just cancel the things the other party did that have a 2-term lead time to fruition. We'll cancel them when we get in and start our own thing. And then they each cancel the other one's things, so nothing ends up happening. The Cook Strait theories being the prime example, where...
You're paying down the debt.
Yeah.
On the other half of that. No, I agree. The problem with the National Party is that it is still what the Americans would consider the rhinos, the old Republicans. There's no young blood voice there at all. We don't have the Gen X and lower insurgent right in New Zealand yet.
Which makes it a bit crazy that the most common sense party seems to be New Zealand First, whose main demographic is pensioners.
I have a bit of mixed feelings with them after they picked Jacinda the first time around. But I don't know. I'm sort of just... We'll see what National does this time around. They got in, they got the mandate. They seem to be doing alright so far, though it hasn't been long. We'll see.
Yeah, but as typical with democracy, it's not catastrophic. It's annoying.
Our elections don't feel particularly consequential, to be fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
We don't
bumbling
have a
along.
massive state that. Yeah, we're such a small country that the state that presides over us is so small it's not really a problem.
Mm.
I will note the real problem in our country is the environmental agencies.
Mm.
They are absolutely a massive problem, and they are local elections.
Mm.
Well, I don't even know if they're elections, I think they're appointed. But they are local governing bodies that have authority over food production effectively.
Yeah.
And we've just gone through it on our farm. They've just come through and decided that our water source label needs to be changed from one label to another label, and that cuts our use of water in half. So now we might not have enough water to run the farm come summer.
Mm. Yeah,
And it's like, this farm's been here for like 50 years.
it's the environmental
And
ideology.
yeah,
Yeah.
basically. And the ability to govern without what? Accountability to the people,
Mm. You need
constituency.
to it's essential to have whoever's making the decisions accountable for their errors. Otherwise,
Mm.
you get an accumulation of errors and bad decisions. It
Yeah,
just
or
gets
they at
worse.
least need to be accountable to local or state governance.
Mm.
Like America just had this problem where they had agencies that went off the rails
Mm.
and started making up their own rules and growing their own powers, which is against the acts of Congress that founded them in the first place. And they just grew and grew and grew and started creating their own laws by fiat.
Mm.
Once you have the Environmental Management Agency suddenly says, oh, you're not allowed to use water that way.
Mm.
It's like, you never had the authority to do that, and you've just decided that you have. And we have the same problem here with our local environmental agencies. Like, we have one for Southland, there's one for Western Northern Otago, there's one for every small area in the country. And it's a serious problem.
Mm. And the
But,
regional
people in
consent
the city will
costs.
people in the city will never see it.
Yeah, like the city people are seeing the cost of, well, half the cost of building a house being paying the council to sign the piece of paper. Yeah.
It's
Like,
the democracy dies, not democracy, civilizations die from bureaucracy.
yeah.
I need to fill out a 35-page document before I can rescue that person from a burning building.
Yeah.
And if I
Yeah.
don't, I go to prison. And it's true.
Hopefully, yeah, which seems to be something that not necessarily in as many words, but the overblown bureaucracy seems to be something that Trump has heard the complaints about from his voting base and that he's
Yep.
out to fight. And if Elon gets the Ministry of Doge,
Well,
or the Department of,
I'm just excited because they're ahead
yeah,
of the curve.
yeah, hopefully we get a Department of Government Efficiency here sometime. That would be good if it
Well,
actually
we
does
kind of have
something.
it. We kind of have it because of all those people getting fired from TVNZ at the moment.
Yeah.
You hear about that?
I did hear about that. I don't know the details about that, but I did hear something about, what was it? The current National Party health minister got a call from a bunch of health workers who were saying, "You said that the cuts to health weren't going to affect frontline services. We are frontline, and we're going to be fired." And he was like, "What the hell?" And so he went and looked into it, and then there were like 200 jobs going to be cut or something, or 50, I don't know. But he took that number, went to the CEO at the top of that particular region and said, "You're fired, and the 200 people under you." Like from the top.
Yes. That's the leadership we need. You don't cull from the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah. You cull from the top and you replace that, or better yet, you don't replace that at all and you delegate downwards responsibilities to elevate those at the bottom of the hierarchy.
Yeah, the bureaucracy will rebuild itself with time.
Yeah, you give responsibility down and then you give authority down for the people to make new hires. Cut the top 200, you bring the authority down, and then those people go, fuck, I have too much to do. I guess I have to hire more frontline people.
Yes.
Boom, 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 boom. And now the people at the top have frontline skills.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Maybe I need to start looking into New Zealand politics now that the culture war's been won.
Oh yes, hopefully that will. Hopefully there'll be a quick ban on gender reassignment surgery of minors.
Yep, that's happened.
Already?
Trump's been talking about it. Yeah,
Oh,
he's
okay, in
well,
that sense.
the ban hasn't come into he's not in
Yeah.
office, but he has been very clear on that one.
Yeah.
That's over.
Good.
Yep.
Yeah, that's an individual issue that it's like, no, that's too far.
I can't wait for Inauguration Day. I can't wait.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
just we're gonna get the list of executive orders.
Yeah.
On day one, he's gonna be like 150 things that are done immediately, and I just reading that list is gonna be the greatest day ever.
Well, I remember that was it the Democrats were complaining about the number of executive orders he made last time he was in. Then within a week, Biden made just as many and more once he got
Yeah.
in, and it's like,
Well, yeah.
so this is how you want to play the game, then? Okay, then.
Well, that's always been the way. That's why they've contested every election for the last 50 years, saying that the Republicans stole it. And then Trump does it once, and they go, "Oh, you're such a threat to democracy. How can you be an election denier?" Like, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Hillary denied 2016. Russian interference. Russia, 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 Russia.
Yeah.
Can't have it both ways. Like, we have the internet. You can't lie anymore.
Yeah,
Elon's done the greatest service to humanity ever with community notes on X.
Yeah, that's worked really well.
Well, even like it even prevents confirmation bias on the right side of the stuff. Like there was some post about like, oh, this new plan Trump's just come out with, it's so great, and the community note was actually this is from last year. And it's like, okay, I still like the plan, but I actually love that thing was right there saying this video is from the fall of 2013.
Yeah.
Here's the link to the original source.
Yeah.
Fuck yes.
It's like the
That is
internet.
beautiful.
What
Best
was it?
man alive.
There are enough people with really specific skills and too much time on their hands on the internet. It's like those geoguessers. Like there was someone who.
Yeah,
was
those
it?
things are wild.
Yeah, he.
Square of dirt.
Yeah. Oh, no, it was a total blur, and he thought, I recognize that color gradient. Clicked a spot. I was joking! And it was like within a few kilometers, within 100k. It's like same country. And it's like, I was joking! I didn't expect it to actually be that country.
I don't think he was. I think it's just intuition from building that circuit so much.
Yeah. It's like the Charlebois and his flag. It's like they tracked the flag down when all there was behind the flag was sky.
Yeah. Don't bet against 4chan, man.
Yeah. They called in airstrikes on Syria.
Yes, I remember that. Oh, that was so
Yeah.
good. They were identifying ISIS training bases and then passing on the information to a reporter who then passed it on to Putin. And Putin started bombing people, and they were like, yeah, mission achieved.
Yeah, like
was
a
great.
tip-off line. Like, hey, 4chan, by the way, if you find out where the ISIS guys are, here's a tip-off line. Just internet, like, here's our tip-off line.
Yep.
And, like, have
Put
some
those
sort
guys
of
to work.
filtering on it. So it's like, if you give us a whole bunch of bad leads or troll it, you'll
Yeah.
be banned from reporting to this. But, yeah.
That is quite literally weaponized autism.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. Weaponized
It's
autism. Yeah.
Well, it's a powerful force, man.
Oh,
You don't
yeah,
want to
yeah.
fuck with those people.
Yeah, never mess with an obsessive's obsession.
Yeah. Particularly intelligent people who have plenty of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the world's going to be a very interesting place over the next few years.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I'm very much hoping that this cultural sea change will spread out down the hierarchy to us lesser Western nations.
Mm.
And we could have a very good future.
Yeah. Yeah, well, my immediate concerns are kind of focused on, will I have a job in the new year? Because the current load
Business
of money...
not going so well.
Well, the current load of money runs out by then, and the plan was to have the boiler of the production model of steam tractor completed and demonstrated to the investors by then in order to get the next load of money. And as always seems to happen, everything's taking just a bit longer, and so like the calculated end date just keeps moving further out, sort of, and we're trying to run to catch up to it, and it's like,
This is the problem with startups.
yeah, it's not a new problem, but it's still scary.
It'd be great if you could do half and half, like part-time engineering work, consulting somewhere else, and then your other half working on the projects.
Mm, bring in more money. I've been seriously considering investing some of my meager assets in, but I can add like a day to our time as a company.
Yeah, it's not very helpful. Your sweat equity is much more valuable.
Yeah, and the
If
amount
you
that
were
I
able
can.
to get like a part-time job somewhere else and then do remote work for them,
Mm,
is probably the best bet in my mind.
yeah, and the cost of buying shares, like to buy a f- to run through the process of buying a full share because it's not digitized. Um, it's like if I spend 4 grand to try and invest to help, it'll probably cost like 3 grand to process that via the accountant and so on.
Well, that's terrible.
Yeah, yeah.
You guys got to fix that. That's You're engineers. Shouldn't you be able to just autist your way around that one? That seems
Uh,
pretty bad.
I haven't. If the
I
numbers are
suppose not
bigger,
your
it comes
field.
out better. But it's like if I can, I've got this scenario in my head of I go along to the investors thing where they're deciding, and it's like, okay, I don't have much, but here, let me put my penny on the table. It's not worth investing that unless you do too. But I work here, and I'm putting a quarter of my net worth on the table, which will go in if you invest too. And like you've got your own, you do your due diligence and so on, and come to your own conclusion. But here's mine.
Well, I don't know what to say other than good luck. I hope it works out.
Yeah, because if it does work, like the reason I'm so passionate about it is it is resilient. Whatever the future throws at us, this will be better suited to handle it than Tesla's.
It's a great argument for you, but I'm not sure it's a great argument for investors.
Yeah,
You need a utility now. In the modern world, you need a selling point,
yeah. Well,
a
we
case
have
that you're aiming at
we have a
there.
market. Like we've got 5 pre-orders. We've had them for a while, and we've had a lot of people from what I hear from the guy who's doing all the phoning to people. There are a lot of people who, well, we get a lot of positive feedback. That sounds really cool. Do you have one out yet? No. Let me know when you've got one out there. And even if only 10% of the people who say that end up being interested in buying one, or 1%, like that's another few orders. Like,
How are you going to do manufacturing? Invention's one thing, manufacturing's another.
manufacturing will probably be easier because 90% of the effort's going on inventing at the moment.
Oh well. I don't know enough about it, but good luck.
Yeah, like once the
Seriously.
drawings are done, it's order 10 of those parts or 100 of those parts instead of one.
Mm.
Yeah, and then it's get the assembly line going. Then it's here's the parts. Here's a known good part. Compare it with all these ones, with these marked areas as critical, and see if they match up. Yes, yes, no, yes, yes, no. Okay, we can go assemble 5 of them and tell the subcontractor that he machined these ones wrong. Like if you're machining one item, getting it CNC machined doesn't really make sense because of all the setup. If you're machining 100, you can get them at a tenth of the cost.
Manufacturing at scale has its advantages.
Yeah, there's some bits of it that we can't manufacture at scale because it's a slightly unique manufacturing process. Like you got 2 pipes that are this far apart. How do you get the water to turn the corner? Like, and then weld all the way around everywhere to achieve that. And I'm not sure whether we'll be prepared to tell other companies how we achieved that. Probably down the
Mm.
track, but getting the right quality of weld, doing that in house.
Yeah,
Yeah,
plenty of challenges to solve, it seems.
yeah, but that's a production line thing, and frankly, there's the potential for automating that bit if we can get it right.
It's good to have you out there building things. We don't have enough people building new things.
Yeah,
Small scale still, but it is good to still hear that there are people who are trying new projects and trying to build new things for the future.
yeah. Well, if we can get this one out, get a couple of variations out, like get through this one to market and bring the next generation to market after that. Scaling up and down once we've got the technology is relatively easy. Just build it bigger. And once we've got the boiler, that does contain a little engine in the auxiliary motor, which is doing like 6 different jobs. So that's a complex part. And building the main engine is just bigger but simpler. And then there's the transmission. But once we've got the engine, we slap a generator on the front, stick it on skids, and then we've got a product. Then we build the transmission, then we've got a tractor. But once we get that done, then we've got the plans, and then if things start going to hell, in the sense of there's an interruption to diesel supply that causes the price to spike, and if it gets to the point where people start trying to run anything that's on diesel, on alternative forms of diesel, like whatever form of biodiesel you want, if they're doing that, then we win. We can beat that. We can't switch.
I think it's going to be a while.
Yeah, it's going to be a while, and I
still think it's funny how different our worldview of the future is.
Yeah, I think it probably will be a while.
I see prosperity.
Yeah, well, prosperity doesn't mean necessarily high tech.
I see high tech.
Yeah, I have anxiety about the future and would prefer to be more prepared than less.
Well, it seems that we're more resilient than we thought.
Mm.
I feel like this week kind of proved that even the average normies can be woken up after a wee while.
Yeah. The decline is.
I mean, it
slow
only
and
took 10 years, not 100.
Yeah.
We're doing a lot better, thanks to new technology.
That's true.
I think there's, personally, I don't know if we want to do the oil thing again, but I think there is a fuck ton of oil everywhere that's not been tapped.
We'll see.
Well, I know there's a fuck ton of oil everywhere that's not been tapped. Just from what we know that's there.
Yeah, the question is how rapidly that can be brought to market and how much that would impact the future supply. It's like, can the current rate of production be maintained is the question.
I think we'll end up phasing off it anyway. So it's just getting to that point.
This is getting into the nitty-gritty uncertainties that's probably beyond worth discussing.
Well, I think it'd be interesting just to give like a one-paragraph vision for the future of energy and technology each and just see the difference.
Yeah.
Right, do you want me to go first? Do you want to go first?
I'll be coloured by what you say, so I'll go first.
Really? Okay, go for it.
I know my brain. Yeah, the high agreeableness.
Respect.
Yeah. I would see the future in 10 years being basically similar to the present, with a bunch of large or small intervening crises acting as headwinds to the system. I would expect oil production to be, say, 90 to 95% of the present in 10 years. That might be a little pessimistic, but...
Why 10 years? Why'd you pick that date?
Not sure.
Okay.
It's close enough that the present will still be relevant. It's far enough that trends will have had some time to play out.
Okay.
But...
Lay that out, and then what happens after? Finish the 10-year first, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty similar to the present. Just the crapification of things has continued. Supply lines have become a bit less reliable. There've been a few supply shocks similar to COVID. Like, we've already had some of this. Globalization continues to slide into reverse. Localization of manufacturing has haltingly continued. But that's a long, slow process.
Haltingly continued localized manufacturing. What do you mean?
Untangling global supply chains with interruptions.
Do you mean local is increasing?
Yes. So global supply chains getting interrupted, leading to an incentive to manufacture things closer with less overseas products. But I'd still expect there to be global trade. I don't expect it to be World War III. I expect there to be some wars around the world because the world is filled with humans and humans like to fight. But
okay.
Yeah, still possible to have a good life.
Okay. You see oil going away?
Declining.
say 40 years.
I'd expect to still see oil being pumped in 100.
Okay. In minute numbers compared to today.
How much oil was being pumped in 1920? 1925 sort of thing.
Hard to say.
Yeah, what's that, about a third of the current by
Don't
then?
know, maybe.
I'd expect the curve to be approximately symmetrical around 2015, 2020, but then if you're pumping lower energy stuff like tar sands versus
What's replacing it? What's going to replace it?
Lack of use.
What, you don't believe there'll be an energy source that we will replace?
I think there will be substitutes of inferior quality. So, like substituting...
Like biodiesels.
Yeah, and substituting tar
hydrogen.
sands. The hydrogen's not a source of energy. Hydrogen's a means of storing it. That's very, very inefficient.
Okay.
Yeah. Batteries are better.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I was just trying to pick your brain at where you see things going.
So
you see people not using personal transport as much, less shipping, less use of energy for these things.
Yeah, some degree of...
Do you see a decrease in living standards because of this? Or do you see local manufacturing and efficient uses of resources counter or outweighing it?
So, standard of living is often defined using the per capita energy consumption. I would expect that to go down.
Okay, let's not use that metric.
Yeah, I do hold out hope. I think, possibly foolishly, that the quality of life, the happiness, the rates of mental illness will get better, like less mental illness. I think that the way...
let's separate mental illness, because I think that's a different conversation.
Yeah.
Purely resources.
Okay, if it's purely resources, less stuff.
Quality of things?
Highly variable.
Okay, so you believe that quality of life will decrease due to lack of resources?
That the standard of living will decrease. I define quality of life differently. Okay. Yeah.
Standard of living, that's fine. I'm agreed with that metric.
Yeah,
okay.
So there'll be... I would expect the quality of products to become more highly valued, but I would also expect the continued trend of less quality where manufacturers can get away with it. But
quality of products being more highly valued, what do you mean?
Well, in the sense of it being harder to get good quality stuff, so it's more scarce, more
expensive
through scarcity, but where people can get it, it's appreciated more. Like these days...
Okay, I agree with that. Yeah. I would throw in an asterisk that I think the kind of US petrodollar kind of fucks that whole equation. Because it's very easy to get things of very high quality, but that's just because we bully people into using Western currencies by force.
Yeah,
so that kind of fucks it, but I get your point.
I'd give a 60-40 in favour of that having declined to not be the dominant currency.
Yeah, I don't think petrodollar is going to be around in 10 years, personally.
Yeah. There's a wide range of potential outcomes. It might bumble along on a slow trajectory from where it is now. It might have a market crash that screws it as the international reserve currency between now and 10 years. So there's a wide range of potential outcomes.
Wouldn't it be funny if we find out that the CIA has all of that Bitcoin that the original creator had, made? Because, by the way, that would be enough to pay off all of the US debt immediately.
Wouldn't that crash the price of Bitcoin if they started selling it?
Yes, it would. But still.
They'd
interesting,
do it slowly.
Nonetheless.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could do it in a way that people didn't realise. Or you use that to pay for the things that the US does, and then you use the tax income to pay off the... whatever. Irrelevant. Okay, I think that's interesting. So you're seeing kind of a return to the Earth, little bit of technology left around, kind of solar punk style. We have some stuff, we have some solar panels on our wee huts, closer to the Earth connection, small manufacturing, local, but nothing so fancy.
Yeah, with a skew towards more resilient technologies that need a smaller manufacturing base.
Everything more local.
Yeah, yeah. Hence steam
Okay.
engines,
Do
not
you see that
Teslas.
as a bad thing?
No,
Okay. I think we're in agreement on that.
I think it would come with an improved quality of life for those who embrace it. For
Mm.
those who cling for dear life onto the myth of progress and the associated technologies and signs of status.
Mm.
Like people who believe that property prices will always go up and invest their entire identity in things like that. Population's going to peak. With
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be
It
pretty
has.
clear. Well, in many
Oh,
places,
for
yeah.
for us, yeah, for us it has. No, I agree with that.
Yeah, well, we've got an immigration into New Zealand that's
I
blurring
think it's
that.
funny that we kind of. I think I have a similar vision to you, but I think it's going to be based on choice, not on resource limitation.
Hmm.
I think everything is going to become more local based on technological advancement, and I think people are going to choose to go and create and live in small communities closer to the earth
Hmm.
because that's where we want to be as humans naturally.
I would think.
But I don't think it's going to be based on not being able to do the other thing.
I think individuals would choose that direction with a clear social path towards it, but I think that there are social impediments in that way, and whether that's corporations, whatever, it's not an
Yeah,
easy path.
there's plenty of obstacles on the way.
Yeah. So I
I
think that
agree, but this is the 100-year kind of timeline we were
yeah,
talking.
well in the
Yeah,
yeah, I think the degradation will impact those obstacles more than it would impact the path itself, if that makes sense. Like getting back to the land is a less technically sophisticated, technically vulnerable lifestyle.
yeah,
So those who go that way will be less affected by shortened supply chains. There'll be issues with fertilizer dependence in farming and interruptions to that supply chain and so on, and issues with tractors that have GPSs and satellite connections and so
Do
on.
you know of the game Stardew Valley?
It rings a bell. Beyond that, no.
Basically, the idea is the main character like has an office job in a city and hates it, and he gets a chance to go out and live on a little farm in the middle of Wop Wops.
Mm.
And you basically the whole game is you grow some veggies, you sell them at the market.
Mm.
You go around and you meet all the people in the town, and you like do your wee festivities and activities in the town.
Mm.
Then that's it. They're called cozy games,
Mm.
and the point is, people in the office, people in the city yearn for that.
Yeah.
Now, there's the people who yearn to be at the top of the dominance hierarchy and they'll go and compete and make the greatest things. Okay. But most other people kind of just want to, like, be left alone, go outside, touch dirt occasionally, do something that they think is somewhat meaningful and being able to have enough money to live.
Mm.
And people would rather do that with a beautiful sunrise over green fields than dark, stormy clouds over a dark city
Yeah.
with, like, neon lights.
Yeah. When I
I
went,
think we choose it.
yeah, I went down on to a sailing regatta. Dad's got a trailer yacht, and he took that down there. It's Waitaki River. There's a river with a bunch of hydro lakes on it, and the regatta is on one of the hydro lakes. And um, after the sailing was done, most of it got rained off, but we drove up to the next valley, and it was beautiful. There was snow on the mountains. It had snowed while we were there. I actually took a cool panorama of it, but you could see the lush greenery of the valley that came from the fact that there was the hydro lake there to draw the irrigation water from to irrigate the fields, and even just the stabilization of the climate would have improved the environment there outside of the irrigated areas. It felt alive in a very visceral sense. And I actually gave myself a headache from breathing that in a little bit much because I think I'd been used to the city level of
Pollution.
life in the air, for want of a better term. Like this is getting a bit metaphysical.
Carbon
Um,
in the air doesn't feel like life.
that what the life energy, right? I could
Oh, okay.
feel
So you're
it.
like being suffocated by. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's cotton wool. That's like you gotta you you've got little patches of nature in the city. Here it was mountains and like lake that's ice cold and like fields with sheep and whatever. But there's been a move toward dairying in that environment. So there are a few fields that have been regrassed because the high sugar grass doesn't last that long and not the ideal environment for dairying. Gets pretty cold up there, but um,
We make it work.
yeah, yeah. But I'm really looking forward to going and using that trailer yacht as a camper van because it's sort of combination between a boat and a camper van, and it was designed for a family who could go and sail it and race it and also go and camp in it. So it's got a little cooker, it's got an inbuilt place for a portable toilet and things like that, and it can sleep up to 6 if you squeeze. Although I've heard of people sleeping 8 when it was just bucketing down outside, and that must have been fun. Um, there'd be no room left, like the
I've gone
floor.
camping on a yacht before. It's the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
I slept in one of the berths and it was the weirdest thing. It was like sleeping in a coffin because it was
Oh,
just. I had a curved wall on one side. I had my wee flat bed that I was lying on and just wall, right above me. And then I had like a tiny little half-meter by half-meter square that I could get in and out of. It was the
yeah.
strangest feeling.
I really want to go out in the middle of. There's another lake, Lake Brunner. The water's black from tannins flowing down from the forests around it on the west coast, and the wind always drops off to basically dead calm overnight. And I want to tie up to a buoy in the middle of the lake and just sleep in the middle of the lake. And it's just like there is no one, there is nothing but water for kilometers.
It's a good feeling.
But no one but me, and yeah, yeah. Probably I'll put on some nav lights, of course, that
Yeah,
I
is
get
it
crashed into.
funny that living in the city that's your yearning is to be away from people.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm more socially. I have a higher social need than my dad does, which has been interesting to realize in discussions with him and sort of understanding myself away from the childhood template of him, because he doesn't need people. People are nice to haves. And if they cease to be nice to be around, then he's perfectly happy walking off into the mountains and never seeing another person. I kind of need people. But at the
There's
same
people
time,
everywhere.
yeah, there's too many in a city. I need to get out and like space.
Your space is constrained by them.
Yeah,
Everyone's rights are bumping up onto everyone else's.
yeah, yeah. And so I've, I want to set up the boat for camping with him. And we've had the discussions about, well, he's brought up the comments of what I want to inherit and that sort of thing. And so I want to improve the boat to be better for sleeping on with him. And there's not much
You
to
got
do
siblings,
about
so
that. One brother in Australia. So
so you
he'll
have to negotiate.
he'll probably just inherit money and I'll inherit stuff.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about anything like that. It's just me.
Yeah, but
Not that we had much.
my brother would not be interested in the boats. He would not be interested in the tools, which is exactly the sort of thing, or the house probably, which is exactly the things that I would be interested in. It's like, that's a good house. I want that house. And I want the boat, like a laser for
tell me
me,
about it.
and the trailer sailor, and the cars that can tow the trailer sailor, and things like that. Go camping around the lakes and
Yeah,
Yeah.
intergenerational assets are valuable.
yeah, yeah.
That's why I hate inheritance tax. Do you want to hear my vision for the future?
Yes, yes, your turn.
I think the production of oil will increase dramatically over the next 40 years, say 40. I think we'll uncap everything that hasn't been touched. All of the places that, for political reasons, haven't been touched, which is most of the Western oil. As a side note, I have wondered often if the elites embracing the we shouldn't be pumping oil for the environment thing is just a way of protecting that for a later use when it's more valuable. Because it's free storage to keep it in the ground. And if everyone else depletes all their oil reserves first and then we untap ours, now it's worth like 5 times as much.
Mm.
But that aside, I think all of that will get untapped and used. And I think we will end up going to battery powered from nuclear everything in the long run. But I do see us ending up in that same kind of boots on the ground, walking to the shop kind of environment, local living. Little villages, going back to villages.
Because the population
decline
as well is pretty well baked in at this point.
Yeah, I think that's likely as well. I think that won't matter so much. Because we're just going to have robots do everything anyway. Like, I conceive 10, 15 years from now, there'll be more robots than people. Humanoid robots. And then you got all your autos on top of that as well.
It'll be interesting to see, because these are timescales that we'll probably live long enough to see. So...
Yeah, I foresee us going back to little hamlets and little villages and living off the land, but also being technologically advanced. With more power than we know what to do with, and small scale 3D printing and manufacturing workshops in every town, and the ability to do almost anything and build almost anything locally. The energy to power whatever things you want to try and play around with. But I think most people will just have their wee home and their wee garden, and there'll be the wee shop in town, and everyone goes and talks to other people in the real world. I think we're going to turn away from screens.
I hope so. Yeah.
I think so. I think we're going to end up in the Star Trek future. For a long time, I thought it was kind of silly how they talked to the computer and didn't look at the screen. And I actually think that's what's going to end up happening. I think we'll have a communicator that probably looks like a flip phone, which is what the communicators in Star Trek look like. But I think it'll just be voice. I don't think there will be really a lot of information displayed on the screen. I think you'll talk to the AI, which is your own personal one. It'll communicate with the other AIs in the web of knowledge on humanity's net. Assuming we don't go Neuralink style. And I think people will have aversion to screens. It's very strong aversions to them. I think there'll be a big call to go back to nature. But even if not, even if I'm wrong and we go all cyberpunk city, which I hope we don't, because I don't want to see people cutting their flesh and replacing it with robotics, which they will. Yeah. I think even if we go that way, we're still going to be prosperous like we've never imagined. I think nuclear technology is going to get a lot better. I think we're going to get solid-state batteries before too long, and that's going to be wild. I think fossil fuel will be phased out when those technologies are mature enough to take its place. And yeah, I think there's going to be robotics and AI galore everywhere. I mean, it's already here. I have thought, if I had the money, a great idea for a channel would be I would buy one of those humanoid robots, and then I would dress it up in like farm clothes, put clothes over top the robotics, and then bring it out and have it sit and bounce on the back of the bike and, like, film it for a YouTube channel. Have it cut some cows or jump around trying to move some cows around, but dress it up like a human in, farm branded clothes, cut off sleeves and everything.
Yeah, we're not quite there yet, but I heard Dad was telling me about we're
not far.
Yeah.
Like, all those things I described, I can have a personal standing up robot that I could buy today do. It's slow. They don't move quickly, but it can do all those things.
I'm just thinking of the example that I'd heard about, which was why I say it's not quite there yet. Not for everything, but a robot sheepdog. And they put this AI sheepdog with a sheepdog who was very good at teaching pups how to herd sheep. and the it just couldn't quite react fast enough because you need to anticipate what the sheep are going to do.
Yeah, you need sensory reaction times.
Yeah. And eventually the training dog got so frustrated that it attacked the robot dog. It's like, oh, you can't. Why are you not getting this?
That is one of the big problems. Like, that's why a lot of animals, us included, have our muscles linked to our spinal columns before our brain. That sometimes reactions need to be so fast that they can't even make it to the brain. And AI is all brain.
Yeah.
There's no subconscious processing. There's no muscle memory. There's no the response time is too high.
You could get a multi-layered AI.
You get it to the point of what can we run on device, and then you like. Then the other half of that is AI's brains aren't in their brain. Their brain's in their chest, because there's no point to have it on the head. They don't, need it there. That's just for looks. So you can have the full brain power in the chest for communication speed. Cool. You just need to have processing on different levels the way the human being does. There needs to be a physical processing system. It needs to be a real-time OS. I'm assuming you know what a real-time OS is.
No, haven't heard that phrase.
Okay, it is basically what it sounds. In computing, the operating systems that we all run on our phones and our computers are not real-time. And what that means is if you overload a computer with too many errors, it'll slow down and it will go through them all in queue and start chugging. Real-time OSs are designed to never delay in queue. They cannot delay in queue.
Do errors just get dropped if they accumulate too much?
I don't know enough about the details, but I know that they are designed in such a way that, like, in order to ship one, it has to be in such a state where it cannot get into one of those positions. I think there's far more guardrails on the queuing processes, on the queues for processors run by the processors in the chip. And they're designed to always be within a certain margin of real time, so that processes that would take longer are simply not allowed to run on device. And obviously these things are used for like self-driving and security monitoring systems for vehicles and space flights and such like that. It's its own realm. I don't know enough about it. I've only heard it referenced.
Yeah, because
you would need something like that for physical reaction. You go to push it, it needs to be able to stabilize instantly.
Yeah, because having
something moves and it's supposed to react, it needs to be able to do it straight away.
Having a single AI, a single large language model, whatever, do all the processing for a robot, that's very different to how we're structured. Like, we've got, as you pointed out, we've got many layers of processing, and you'd need to have...
And then bottom up.
Yeah, you'd need to have layers of processing like that. So a impact detection or a balance focused AI, basically, that gets instructions from a higher level AI and so on. And the highest level AI is sitting there thinking and processing about goal selection. And then there's a path selection to goal AI. And then there's a balance AI and a impact or a impending impact detection AI to, like, something's coming. Ugh.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what we are. We're a collection of sub-personalities.
Yeah.
And we're trying to make this AI that's all one consciousness. It's all the thinking brain at the top, and then it doesn't have any of the implicit thoughts below.
Yeah, like, there's
So like you're saying, you need to have a stack of chips, each with its own AI and a communication layer between. And you could even have the top chip connected out to the cloud or whatever, to the super big brain. But you need to go all the way down to nervous system response
yeah, like
as the first layer.
In your gut, there's the approximately same number of neurons as a small cat. Like, the gut layers include a layer of neurons. It has a brain. It figures out.
I didn't know that, but that makes sense from what I know about gut biome and reactions to food. So that's cool.
Yeah, it takes in the food and figures stuff out, and you can negotiate with it. Like,
and you can retrain it too.
yeah, and like, if you know you're not going to get food for a while, it's like hunger impulse comes up from the stomach, and it's like, no, not going to get food for a while today because thing is in the way. You sort of send that message back, and then the hunger impulse goes away for a while, rather than churning up ready to get the food. And
That's great. Love it.
yeah, and like if you're someone who's done a lot of walking on ice, like very slippery ice, um, you'll get sore calf muscles once you get good at it, because the minute foot adjustments to not slip are being processed in the spinal column, not in your brain.
Yeah, and there's so many of them so frantically fast that it will wear out your muscles very quickly.
Yeah, just based on the sensation in your feet. It's not including the balance centers. That's just broad sort of relative pressure on parts of the feet. But keeping them... Yeah, I don't even know how that works, but the fact that that level of processing is happening there.
Not.
Like grip decision. Like, oh, I want to pick that up. You've got the pick thing up, and your perception... Like, if I want to pick up my water bottle, my brain looks at it as a grip, as a handle. If I think of using it as a club, it's perceived differently. If I think about how to open it, it's like the grip is how your brain processes it. And that's not here as object. Classification, water bottle. It's
goal first.
Yeah, it's grabbable thing.
Yep. It's a handle, it's a bat, it's a lid that needs to be opened. It's the objection, the goal before the object. I think we'll get there with robotics and AI. I think we're bloody close now. I think it's only going to get better.
Yeah.
And the technological advances, if we get solid state batteries, is going to change everything.
One thing...
I mean, we've gotten pretty good at batteries as it is.
Yeah. Something that I was looking forward to with AI was like AI-driven chip fab. So, like, the sort of thing you could have in a university. Like, you talk to the AI, you say, I want a chip to do this, and you go through it for a while, speaking out what you want this chip to be able to do. Basically a PCB. And...
a custom task-built chips.
Yeah.
Instead of general purpose compute, it's specific purpose compute.
Yeah, because then you wouldn't need the full supply chain, assuming you can shrink the chip manufacturing process itself. And these would be low-end chips rather than full CPUs. Like high performance, you'd probably centralize that. But if you can distribute out the lower performance, more task specialized chips, then you can source those locally. Like, oh, this chip broke. I'd like another one.
Yeah, like the problem we had a couple years back of the $50,000 cars that couldn't ship because $5 chips weren't available.
Yeah. Yeah, that's...
And they were just bin chips from bigger ones anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, and you don't need all the massive extra processing power. You don't need to throw raw processing power at it if you can make a chip that's specialized for it. If you get the AI understanding analog level processing, and I'm not talking analog computer, I'm talking like RF processing. You can have something that does 1 million or tens of millions of samples a second, convert it all into digital, and then do your processing on it, software-defined radio. Or you can have something that's 1,000th of the component level complexity and does all the same thing. Like they did it with valves. That's like a dozen...
And that's where we're getting at with the quantum computing as well, is that it's a computing system, a computing architecture for a task, not for everything.
Yeah.
Like quantum computers would be terrible computers, but they're bloody good at a few specific things. And we design and design and design for that, put it where it's valuable, make it small scale. And then we do the same with analog chips, and then we do the same with digital chips. And whatever comes after.
Yeah, like if you have a projection system from an appropriate light source through an LCD, through some lenses down a microscope onto your piece of silicon, and then you expose that, you glue it onto something. Well, chip handling, I don't know, but you get your piece of silicon.
Yeah.
You probably make 2 or 3 because there's probably going to be one that got an error. and then you've got like having a stock of 100 different types of chip in a bunch of different drawers. It's like, oh, here's the spare the spare that I made last time when you broke that chip. Like, here's another one, like so on. But then that goes into the next process, goes through cycles a few times through the exposure, the chemical, the washes, and so on. And because it's a low end chip, it doesn't need to be as precise and as clean as the high end chips. So, glove box size thing, like, would fit in a large room, single room, not a warehouse. Like, a single university could do it. And then out there, it gets to the end of the production line, and then there it is, all packaged, and you put it on your PCB, and then off you go. And someone can hand solder it in, and yeah.
Yeah, 100 years from now, when we're printing our own chips in our workshop in the garage, will be awesome.
Oh, yeah. Like, if you can make a custom chip, how much of the PCB can you skip? Like, the voltage
Most
protection.
of it. I mean, Apple already does this. They have system and package for their watches. There isn't a PCB. It's a chip. And that's the whole system.
That makes sense.
Everything. Yeah. Because you need to in such a small thing. And it makes it as efficient as possible for battery, obviously. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, I need this chip. It needs to do this sort of processing, have voltage protection and conversion to handle these sort of things. It'll need a heat sink, so we'll have to lay it out physically appropriate to that and add a appropriate heat sink mount on part of the chip. And then...
Yeah, design that for me, please, AI.
Yeah.
I mean, AI is getting pretty damn good at designing things. I asked my AI the other day for a podcast app for my PC because I wanted to download and archive a whole bunch of podcasts just for historical things. Instead of finding me one, it just wrote one. And I was like, it's not what I wanted. I actually just wanted you to be like, here's 5 good recommendations, go check this one out. It's like, no, I'll just write you one.
Yeah.
Like, well, it looks pretty good.
I've heard that the code written by AI is like, if you want a standalone thing, it's good at that. But if you want something that will integrate with a larger system,
yeah,
it doesn't have the contextual knowledge to do that.
No, but it's pretty good at making, like, I need to make a thing that does this thing. It'll do that pretty well.
Make me a one-page script for this particular purpose.
Yeah, the buttons on the page generally don't work, but it looks pretty good.
Yeah.
That's generally what I've seen. Yeah.
Yeah, it needs debugging. Yeah.
But
I should ask.
These are just tools. Like, they are tools that should be used. Like working on homeschooling application, and I was able to take the application form, and there's also a form that came with it of like, how should you fill it out? And I just uploaded them both into Claude and was like, here's my parameters, this is the kind of thing I want to explain, and it just wrote it for me. And I was like, I have a problem with this section, redo it, and just wrote it again. Okay, that's a bit wordy, make more bullet points, put it on. Again, the whole thing. I was like, obviously, I'm still going to take the, 10 different variants that I generated, smash them all together, edit it, rewrite it, and make it better. But as a first pass draft, it's an incredibly useful tool.
Yeah. I've heard it described, I think it was Jordan Peterson that was describing it. It's like a very intelligent and knowledgeable but inexperienced intern.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you just keep going back to it and being like, this is wrong, this is why, do it this way. And then it does it. It doesn't complain.
Yeah.
I really like that it's going to turn writing into editing. Because I think the greatest writers are editors anyway. Like, Tolkien didn't write Lord of the Rings first draft. Like, that's like the 150th draft.
Well, he didn't write... What was it? He wrote the world and then said a children's story in it.
Yes, but my point is that the people who are the greatest writers are the ones who write ridiculous amounts of material and then edit it down to as concise as possible. Yeah. And the people who are terrible writers write a first draft and then publish it.
Yeah. Yeah, there was was it one of those, not Skillshare, Something where prominent people run a course on whatever, and this was
Yeah.
one I think Neil Gaiman doing writing, and he said the purpose of the second draft is to make it look like you knew what you were doing the first time. Yeah,
Yeah, and you want to do that 50 more times
yeah.
if you want to make something golden.
You can't edit a blank page. Pour out all the rubbish, and then pick through it.
Yeah, yeah. You write 10,000 words and you publish two.
Hopefully a few more than that, but yeah,
Well, not just meaning for a book, like that's an article or whatever, but you get the point.
yeah,
There should be an incredibly high colour rate.
yeah. Especially with the voice
Because,
typing
yeah,
and such.
the art of judgment is humanity's greatest gift.
Hmm.
And we abandon judgment at our own peril.
Yeah.
Like, the worst farmers, the worst dairy farmers, are the ones who don't cull.
Hmm. Yeah, there are hard choices to make sometimes.
Well, if a cow isn't producing well or gets sore feet all the time or, gets infections all the time, and you don't cull her, she's going to have offspring.
Hmm.
And you're going to multiply your problem. And then you take what was once a good herd of cows and you have more cows, but half of them are shit.
Hmm.
And then you're feeding all of those equally.
Yeah.
And now you're taking away food from the better ones and giving them to the worse.
Yeah. You need the selective pressure that's equivalent to the wolves behind the herd, taking off the weak
Basically.
ones. Yeah.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah. I've heard
Yeah.
that.
You always get infections in this quarter. You have forever. Your milk production's going down. You're getting sore legs. Okay, meatworks time.
Mm,
You're not worthy of having another generation.
yeah.
That's just part of the business.
I heard they're doing the same thing with the Kaimanawa horses, which are it's a herd of wild horses in the North Island.
Don't know about it.
Around the region of Kaimanawa, I believe. But the numbers exploded and they were destroying the environment from overeating. But people don't like them culling them because horses are cute. You're frozen. I'm going to assume that you'll come back in a moment and mine's
I
recording.
rolled
anyway.
my eyes. I'm not frozen on the recording though.
Yeah, yeah. But so now they keep the numbers down and they take the weaker members of the herd and leave the stronger members of the herd out running wild. And apparently you need to train these horses a bit differently to how you would break in a domestically bred horse. You can't be the boss. You befriend this horse. And it decides that, oh, I'll do what you ask me to because you're nice to me and you give me food. So, okay. And it's a partnership rather than a command. Which, yeah. Different relationship.
That's the case with most animals, to my experience. The more forceful you are with cows, the less they obey.
Hmm. I agree. I guess there's variation in the degree to which or how responsive they'll be. Oh,
Yeah, there's a middle ground.
yeah.
Like, if you sort of do nothing, nothing happens. But you can go far too far, and people often do. And then you just watch the cows not listen to them, or kick them, or get more snotty. And it's like, well, you being stressed and aggressive isn't going to make them calm and compliant now, is it?
Hmm. Yep.
Yeah, friendly nature is the way to go. No one acts well when they're stressed.
I feel like that's been a good show, and I can't see you anymore, so.
Okay. Well, we'll leave it there then.
Yep. Oh well. The world has turned a corner. How's that for a title? Anyway, see ya.
Yeah, that's not bad. Yeah, yep. Catch you later, everyone.